All right, welcome back to another episode of Real Talk Michigan edition. It's Wednesday night. Jeff here. Dan, how are you, man?
Good to be back, buddy. What's up?
Nothing much. Obviously sitting at 2-0, coming off I'm going to call it a big game, a big maze out game at night at Michigan Stadium. I think Michigan, they were finally able to do the maze out well. I thought for the most part it looked pretty good. From the videos and the pictures that I've seen, and from just watching the game, it definitely seemed like it was a success. And I know years past we haven't had success with the maze out, but overall, what were your initial impressions of the maze out and the energy of the stadium?
Well, I mean, obviously, you and I were on the golf course, tailgating, watching it, whatever. But from what we've seen and heard is the stadium was rocking. It was, you know, pretty unique that finally Michigan fans kind of really bought into the whole home field advantage thing. Obviously, a lot has to do with just not being able to be at any games last year, so people are fiending, chomping at the bit to go to the big house, and they sure did their part. We had some friends go in the stadium while we stayed out, and they said that was the loudest they ever heard it. Um,
I've
I've
actually
been
heard
to,
that from multiple people after the fact, people from Facebook posts and
right,
lots from Twitter. Lots of people have gone on record saying it's the last they've ever heard it.
right, and that's good to hear. I mean, now that you set the bar, you got to bring it every week, even if it's Northern Illinois or Ohio State, you got to bring that energy. Noon, 3:30, 8 o'clock game. You got to bring that every week. That's what makes Happy Valley. That's what makes Camp Randall. That's what makes Columbus so great with the atmosphere for that home field advantage. So just Michigan fans, if you go to the game, keep doing it.
Yeah, I was impressed. I think it's something that, as you said, we need to build off of this. This needs to be. I'm not saying that every single week you got to wear your Maze T-shirt and we got to play under the lights and we got to, but we do have to start getting up for the games. And if it comes time to a third down, get on your feet, be loud, make it obnoxious, make the opponent fear Michigan Stadium. We've heard so many times that Michigan Stadium isn't a feared arena anymore or a feared stadium anymore. And I think that there's momentum. Yeah, that's the best way I can say it.
Oh, for sure.
Let's go get right into the game though. Michigan, Washington. Michigan was favored, I think, by 6.5. And if you look at the score, Michigan wins 31-10 after leading 24-3 in the fourth quarter. Each team punches one in the fourth quarter though, and we get to 31-10. I think the story of the game was Michigan's run game. Michigan runs 56 times for 343 yards, 4 touchdowns. We'll get into the specifics here in a minute. Cade McNamara, 7 for 15 for 44 yards, only 44 yards passing, and 33 of them came on one completion. With that said, before we go any farther, lots of people pissed off about the game plan. I don't understand how you can be. It's a 6.5 point spread. You're favored to win by a score, and you win by 3 scores. Go ahead. Yeah, I'll let you elaborate. What did you think about the game plan? What did you think about the limited passing? Are you concerned with it?
I know a lot of Michigan fans were concerned. Obviously, I mean, even after the Western Michigan game, people have already been calling for JJ McCarthy, and a lot of them, from what I've spoken, people I've spoken to, and the interwebs, it's like they think by Big Ten play that Caden McNamara is going to be fading into the mist. And what I heard was kind of weird over the weekend or at work somewhere is Caden isn't. My neighbor. He said Cade just stands there. She shows no emotion, and I'm like, dude, obviously you just don't pay attention to the cat. But um, the game plan, it is what it is. I mean, Harbaugh, he had one of his Harbaugh type comments where he's talking about how you travel by air, or some people travel by air, some people travel by land. If that's what their game plan was to shove it down their mouth, I mean, it worked. It couldn't really be stopped. Um, we'll get into the key points in the game in a little bit, but I mean, there's one point where Michigan stuff got stuffed on the goal line, but I mean, 343 on the ground. When you can win without asking your quarterback to do too much, I'm okay with that because we've seen in the past when Michigan has to rely on the quarterback because they can't rely on the run game, then it has a worse side effect. So Hey, McNamara, 15 passes completed 7 times. I mean, it is what it is. Um, and I'll get to it later on. But I would love to see, or I wanted to see more wide receiver this week when we had our last pot. But again, can't complain with the W.
Yeah, I think as I start to really think about it, I mean, first off, I'm never going to complain about a win. Unless it's a narrow win over a bad opponent, then I'll be like, okay, we should have been better. Most of the time, I'm not going to complain against a win, especially a night game against a credible opponent as Washington is. They were ranked literally a week ago. They had a bad outing against Montana, but they were literally just ranked last week. I know it's preseason, but regardless, this is a big game. This game's been on the schedule for a couple of years. We were supposed to go out there late last year. COVID obviously canceled that game. I've been looking forward to this one. So to win in the manner in which we won, you're not going to hear a complaint out of me. But when I start to think about I'm going to go off Harbaugh's quote. What are we doing, or what are you doing to beat Ohio State today? I don't think 44 passing yards is going to beat Ohio State. But on the flip side, 340-ish rushing yards probably would beat Ohio State, or at least it'd be a good game. So, ultimately, I'm cool with the game plan as long as it's game plan specific, like Belichick style. Like, this is how I know we'll beat them, so that's what we're gonna do. Period. I don't care if you think we're gonna pass it 25 times. We're not going to today. We're only gonna run it because that's what we practice. That's what we know is gonna beat them. I'm cool with that. But at the same token, somebody made a really good point. Ohio State, Penn State, Wisconsin, Notre Dame, Alabama, their quarterbacks come week 5 or 6 are already going to have well into 200 pass attempts. So if they get behind, for instance, let's just go with Ohio State's quarterback. I think he has now thrown over 100 pass attempts in 2 games. Okay. If they get behind in week 4, he's already had the experience passing the football at this point. He's got over 100 plus pass attempts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Cade McNamara's got, 35 through 2 games? It's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
I do agree there when somebody pointed that out. It's like, yeah, you make a solid point. You do need to get these quarterbacks reps, especially because Cade just started his 3rd game. That's it. I mean, he does have limited action, but again, I don't want to get too much into it. I think I'm going to live this season one game at a time, as I've been trying to tell myself. Not trying to not try to get too ahead of myself. Not try to look forward to Wisconsin. Just try to take it as this week's Northern Illinois, and you got to beat that team because unfortunately, every team needs to be treated like Ohio State. Play to your best, beat whoever you can, do everything you can to win. So. Let's talk about the rushing attack, though. Obviously, these are names that we've been talking about for the last several weeks. If you've been listening, these names are going to sound awfully familiar because they've been fantastic. Blake Corum, 21 carries for 171 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also is the leading receiver. He had 3 catches for 11 yards. And then Hassan Haskins, who I've been preaching about now for a year and a half, 27 carries, 155 yards, 1 touchdown. As I said, the team rushed for 343 total, but that's majority of that was those 2 gentlemen. What do you have to say about Blake? What do you have to say about Haskins? What do you have to say about the rotation in which we are using?
I absolutely love it. We finally have now kind of a 1-2 punch, and we don't really have that 4 or 5 bipolar disease that we had last year. And obviously we've beaten that with a dead horse, or like a dead horse. But with Blake Corum, I mean, he's touched the rock less in rushing attempts than Hassan. 21 to 27, but obviously a little bit more explosive Saturday. Busted off a 67-yarder after what was it?
There was a fake punt.
Yeah, so they got the fake punt, and then he busted that to the house. But
Yeah.
Hassan Haskins still pretty. I mean, still efficient. I mean, not both these guys are efficient, but Blake Corum right now just seems to be exploding through the hole. And I'm trying to figure out who I could compare him to, whether it's a former Michigan running back, or someone in the college ranks somewhere. And I don't think he's got the shiftiness like a J.K. Dobbins, but he's got the physical attributes of J.K. Dobbins, and he kind of looks like he's got the speed of him. And when he did bust off that long run, man, he was literally almost untouched. So dude is obviously um, emerging to be a good player down the road, and probably going to be the eventual number one running back on the team. And we had Donovan Edwards, obviously that 5-star coming in. He got the ball one time for 4. So obviously he still has to earn his time. He's still going to be playing behind these two if they're going to operate like this. So yeah, no complaints there.
I mean, truly, this should show you, Donovan Edwards, the 5-star running back. Week 1 he takes a few carries, but it was a much larger margin of victory going into the fourth quarter and stuff. This week he takes 1 carry. There's a reason for that. These two have been outstanding, is the only word I have for them. This week, I think Harbaugh listened to the pod because he gave Hassan the majority of the handoffs. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, well, Blake Corum was better. I personally believe that one of the reasons Blake Corum has been so successful is because Hassan is a bruiser. He's such a physical runner. He runs tall in the pocket, runs through tackles. And then next thing you know, after you're worn out and you've been taking on Hassan for 5.5 yards a carry, Blake comes in. He just bursts one off. He's too fast. He's too shifty. I absolutely love the 1-2 punch. I still believe that this is the bulk of the load needs to go to Hassan and set up the big play for Blake and set up the passing game with Blake too, which he has been exceptional in. And I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself again. I'm going 1 week at a time, but this could very much be a Barry Sanders type season where he is the backup and it just, comes into that thing where he's the guy, Barry Sanders obviously backed up Thurman Thomas in college. So I'm not trying to compare the two, but Blake Corum he's been special, and I didn't think he would be. I thought this would be 100% Hassan's show, but I'm glad Hassan hasn't backed off because Blake's obviously been the absolute MVP, star, whatever you want to call him. And for me, the number one factor in all this is Mike Hart. I don't think it's a coincidence. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. That was a home run hire, and
Yeah.
his fingerprints are all over it.
Yeah. I think that is so huge. And if this team does continue to have success, which I hope they do, and it looks like they're going to have some sort of success this year. Well, their record, that'll come as it comes, and what happens with their rivalry games. But it looks like this team right now is going to have success against people because it seems like they're hungry and they want it. So let's talk a little bit about, obviously, Cade McNamara. We just kind of touched on that as far as the game plan goes. There's not a whole lot to add. He really had 1 pass to Cornelius Johnson. The rest were just little small dink and dunks. Nothing to really go on. Defensively, though, not a shocker. Aiden Hutchinson's huge, 2.5 sacks. Josh Ross, 11 tackles. They did try to test us through the air. It's something that I think a lot of teams are going to try and do based solely off last year, because this year's we've looked pretty good. Their quarterback Morris throws 37 times for just shy of 300 yards, but only 1 touchdown in a low QBR. What did you think as far as the defensive effort?
Defensive effort was phenomenal. Washington played them tough in the first half, and it wasn't really till the fourth quarter. I don't know if you want to call it garbage time, but Washington had some timely throws, and I thought, I still think that Washington's best players are Giles Jackson for the Michigan transfer and Cade Otton, their tight end, and I know Bynum. I think Tyrese or Tyrell Bynum went off and in the fourth quarter really, but I think the defense did obviously great pressure on the line. Aiden Hutchinson making huge plays again. 2.5 tackles for a loss, 3 solo, 4 total tackles. So he got in the pocket. Josh Ross, at the beginning of the opening part of the game, Washington gets the delay of game penalty from the crowd, and then Josh Ross completely just annihilates Newton, the running back,
Yeah.
and right there, that those two insinuating actions right there really set the tone for the rest of the game. Again, with Bynum going off, I mean Vincent Gray and the freshman corner. I can't remember the freshman corner who it was, number 19, but I know Bynum beat him in the fourth quarter, and Aiden Hutchinson, the senior captain he is, going over there, lifted his chin up. And man, with your cornerback in college and the NFL, you have to have a short-term memory, and I don't think that's going to phase these guys at all. 10 points is 10 points, and when you're holding a team to 50 rush yards, I mean, whatever. I mean, I know Dylan Morris did 293 in the air, threw the ball 37 times. A little inaccurate, even though he didn't throw an interception. Last week versus Montana, he threw 3 picks, almost had 4. I thought Michigan would have at least gotten him twice in the interception category, but I mean, it is what it is. They made him uncomfortable the whole time, though. So 20 completions or not, I don't think it's nothing to really be concerned about just yet.
Yeah, I definitely don't have any issue with almost 300 yards passing when you throw it 37 times and you're just a hair above 50%. I think anytime you can take a Power 5 school and hold them to 10 points, the defensive effort was there, and it's good enough to live another day. So you won't hear.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm good.
Sorry. One more thing too is during the broadcast, I had to watch the highlights because obviously when we were tailgating, you couldn't really pay attention to what they were saying. But sorry, in the third quarter, Washington was pushing the ball, and Michigan held them to a field goal. And I think at that point they said that Washington had 19 consecutive trips without a score. So I think when they stopped them there, I really think you saw that Michigan is a different defense. And I know Washington is not so far in these first 2 games, Oregon or something like that, or barn burners. But again, when called upon, they Michigan performed. Sorry, no, go ahead.
I mean, I was just basically I was kind of sifting through and saying like the defense against a Power 5 school, 10 points, 50% completions, under 100 rush yards. I'm never going to complain. Football's too difficult these days, and when you beat a good team, you beat a good team. This isn't Mercer, who Alabama played this weekend. This is Washington. We can be happy with this win, and we can move on, and definitely appreciate the defensive effort going into Northern Illinois. This is the second week in a row, where Michigan, they play a game and there's not a whole lot of negatives that come from this game, but every week we kind of do the good, the bad, and what we want to see more of. What was something that you liked this week that was good?
Well, it was very brief and it was only for one play, but I even made a comment when we were watching the game. I liked the Jake Moody 52-yard kick. Granted, you're at home, the pressure's still on, and he showed that he had plenty of leg after 52 yards to sink it in. And obviously last year, Quinn Ordine was more of the Sebastian Janikowski, and Moody was more of the short game, but he proved that he can hit those deep ones, and I was happy with that.
Yeah, Jake Moody he's really been really good over the last 2 years, really. I mean, he's been a bright spot in the kicking game that Michigan hasn't really had in the last 10 years. They've had, perks, but one thing that I liked, we kind of already talked about it, but I do feel like it was probably the highlight of the weekend, was the participation in the Maize Out in the crowd, and a true home field environment to set the tone for what we hope to be a positive year coming off of a winless home season last year. So huge. I thought that it was so good that it needed to be on the good to this week. What do you got for the bad?
Just nitpicking, like we kind of alluded to earlier, just not enough passing. Like I said in the preview for last week, I wanted a receiver to emerge or show signs because of Ronnie Bell's injury. So if it's not broken, don't fix it. And obviously they ran with it, no pun intended. So nitpicking there on the passing, but not incredibly that bad.
Yeah, I think one thing I will say, only because I was going to say the exact same thing, so I'm going to kind of twist it a little bit. If you're not going to pass, that's fine. You got to let some receivers carry the ball. Wide receiver versus, which worked in week 1. We had 2 successful, one for 40, one for like 74. There were some big name recruits at the game over the weekend, and boy, oh boy, would I hate to have them back out for the weird chance that they're like, okay, well, maybe Michigan's not going to ever throw it. You know what I mean? It sounds nitpicky, as you just said. Xavier Worthy, I think he's still up in the air. I don't think he's fully committed to Michigan or anybody yet, right? One of the top.
Nope.
That's a name that we want to land. If you're not going to throw the football, and I understand probably why you just mentioned a second ago. First game without Ronnie Bell, he's the focal point of that offense going into this season, one of the focal points, and he wasn't there. So, Harbaugh's probably not trying to force it in these young kids' hands. He's trying to work it in. That's fine. Let him carry the ball. Get him involved. Even screens. That's a run. Bill Belichick will say a successful screen is a run play. I wish I would have seen that. So I guess that's the bad. If I'm again being nitpicky, because I think Michigan has looked equal through 2 games. Something you want to see more of?
I wanted to see you just pointed out a little bit. I want to see more of execution on screenplays. They did like 2 or 3 of them that went for negative yards or just didn't connect on them. I think one was to Corum, but I want to see more of that. And even real quick, even with John Harbaugh John Harbaugh in Baltimore, the Ravens, the Harbaughs, they kind of have a similar philosophy. Like even though they rely on the run a lot, they'll still pass it, but this. Even with John in Baltimore, you got Lamar Jackson. He's going to utilize his strengths, and so. But again, with the screens, just wanted more execution.
Yeah, one thing that I want to see more of that I've been just sort of small, kind of picking up on. So week 1, I forget the score, but Michigan went for 2, and they brought in a backup quarterback, which we didn't talk about last week. Big physical white kid. Remember his name?
Dan Villari.
Dan Villari, and it didn't work, but they ran kind of an option play with him. Tried to do a power run, kind of like old Tebow style play. Aggressive, unique. I liked it. This week, the fake punt. Did we need the fake punt? 31-10 will tell you no. But at the time, I was all for it. Mm-hmm. I mean, way to flex, way to grow some balls. Show them we're here to battle. And do I want that to happen in week 3? I mean, obviously, I'd love to win 50-0, and we don't need that. But be aggressive. I like these plays that we seem to be using, even if it's 1, maybe if it's 2. I want to see more of that. I think anytime that you can give your team a spark and something that's out of the box, it can only be good.
Right. And I don't think Jim was necessarily doing it to prove a point to this one specific player, but I did read that a Washington linebacker, I think their captain linebacker, and if he's captain, it doesn't matter, was saying in the media that they were determined to stop Michigan's run game, and they were adamant about focusing on that. And so Jim Harbaugh is very mindful and be kind of like back in the day with the tweets with Nick Saban. He's very aware of his surroundings, and so I don't think his whole game plan changed during the week because he heard that. But I bet you at one point, either him or some of the coaching staff, maybe even some of the players, had a little grin on their face, like, "Yeah, look at us now,"
Especially because it got to a point, and I said this, talking with who we were watching the games with. You can be upset that Michigan didn't throw the ball, and I would almost agree with you, like, hey, we need to try and mix it in. But there is some sort of ego and effectiveness in being proud and If the other team knows you're going to run it, and you run it, and you get first downs, I'm sorry, you broke them. Like you're better.
Right.
Keep doing it. And that's obviously what Harbaugh did. I think he probably got to a point where maybe the passing was in the game plan. But after a certain point, he's like, they literally can't stop us. Why give in? Why bail them
Right.
out passing the no? Let's just run it down their throats, run the clock out, and head home. We already lost Ronnie Bell. Why do something that's unnecessary? And Michigan fans, I think it's very easy to lose sight. Obviously, if we win that game by 3, maybe nobody says anything. Oh, we won it. Who cares? But because we were blowing them out, it's like, well, pass it. No, just relax. Just relax.
Right.
Or,
that was
God forbid
that
we
was
throw it in the fourth quarter and somebody gets hurt.
Right. Yeah. Then it'd be like, why aren't you running the ball still?
Yeah.
But that was Michigan's big problem in 2015. That was a good reason. And that played into them losing to Michigan State at home. The block punt. That block punt doesn't happen if Michigan can successfully run the ball. Michigan State knows you're running the ball, and their defense was better than Michigan's offensive line. But her U of M that season, I mean, Davion Smith was successful because he was a battering ram, but your body can only take so much, and so that's part of the reason why. And so again, Jim Harbaugh's now at the point where if he's going to deal with that, chew on it.
Yeah. That pretty much wraps up Washington. Well, let's go into Northern Illinois here. Northern Illinois has coming week 1. They beat Georgia Tech on the road, 21 in a close game. This week, hosting Wyoming, they lost 43-50. And Wyoming punched one in with 1:35 to go. So literally, Northern Illinois has been in both of their games this year. This game's at noon. Michigan obviously is ranked 25 this week, which we'll talk about rankings here a little bit. But we both predicted this as a Michigan win. Nothing's probably changing, but what would you like to see in this game?
To get revenge on little Rocky Lombardi here. I honestly, until doing prep for the pod, I forgot that he even transferred to Northern Illinois, and so far he's got 3 touchdowns and 3 picks, so they're definitely airing the ball out, and so I'm looking to get revenge on him, being a little curmudgeon than I am, but I just want to see no injuries, get out of this unscathed. I want to see first half control the clock, and then hopefully get some more playing time for McCarthy. I mean, that's pretty simple of what I want to see. I mean, other than obviously playing in all 3 phases well, but that's for me, that'll get my juices flowing.
Yeah, for me, it's continue to milk the game plan of dominate the run game, feed Corum, feed Haskins, continue to assert yourself on the offensive line, and throw the ball. But if it's unneeded, don't give away too much. Obviously there does need to come a point where Cade McNamara does need to get some pass attempts under his belt, whether that be in a competitive, that's 0-0, or if it's we're up 28-0. Get Cade some throws. Make sure he can make them, because if you need to go to JJ, obviously we don't want to make sure that's happening on the road at Camp Randall in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, so 2.5 weeks, whatever it is. Don't have a ton to add to this game without it being played, but I do have Michigan winning. Nothing's changed there. Just to confirm, you still have Michigan winning this game, right?
Yeah, they're 27.5 favorites at the moment, and I see this as a 3-score game, at least. And yeah.
Cool beans. Let's talk about Ohio State a little bit. Ohio State plays Oregon. Oregon comes from west to east. They play on Fox at noon o'clock. It was the big Fox kickoff at noon, and unfortunately, that would have been a 9 o'clock start for Oregon. It didn't seem to matter. Oregon played big and physical, was able to move Ohio State around. C.J. Stroud, he threw for almost 500 yards in the game. Unfortunately, that was not the game plan that Ohio State, I don't think, wanted. And Oregon wins. What did you think? Obviously, we were out on the golf course paying attention as much as we could. I'm not sure how much you've gotten to look into this one, but what did you think?
Um, I predicted that Ohio State would win by 14 points. So when at one point, was it the first time we flipped the game on? I think Oregon was up by 2 or 3 scores, and I was kind of shocked, honestly. I know Oregon is good. They were missing some key players on, I think, both sides of the ball, right? And
Yeah,
offensively,
yeah,
Oregon they look like old Chip Kelly offense. I mean, they run the ball well, and they run with 2 backs and their quarterback, and then the quarterback. Now 17 of 35, kind of whatever, but I mean 236, 2 touchdowns, and didn't turn the ball over at all, right? So, I mean, you can't really complain there. C.J. Stroud, 484. Obviously, they had to rely on catch-up play there, so obviously his stats were inflated in that department. But the run game on paper, and if they won, Ohio State did pretty well, averaging 4.1 between 3 runners. And if you talk to some Ohio State fans and some of the analysts, they said that they weren't really impressed with the run game. They need more from it. But in the passing, obviously coming down from it, Olave got his. He ate, didn't score, but he ate. And then Jackson Smith, Nahiba goes off for 145 and 2 scores. So Ohio State, their defense looks like a liability at the moment. They're not saying like they're obviously still the best team in the Big Ten, but last year they were a little vulnerable in the secondary, and it looks like on the defensive line, Oregon at least Saturday took care of them and did what they wanted.
Yeah, the one thing I will say about Ohio State is I know they have a ton of great receivers. I mean, they literally have enough receivers to give everybody in the Big Ten one and still have great receivers. I mean, they're that loaded at wide receiver. But I can't imagine that they thought to themselves, hey, let's come out and pass it 54 times. There's no way that was the game plan. Because that would have been a bad game plan. And truthfully, Ryan Day, till this day, no pun intended, he's lost to, get ready, Alabama, Clemson, Oregon. Pretty good.
Yeah.
He has yet to lose a Big Ten game. So I'm not even going to come at him and come over here and say that he doesn't know what he's doing, because he clearly does know what he's doing. But I was just taken back. I just didn't think that this isn't the way Ohio State wants to attack anyone. They don't want to throw it 54 times. Ask Ryan Day that right now. He'd be like, no, I don't want to do that. Oregon, unfortunately, they threw it 35 times and ran it 38 times. So a lot more success, a lot more balanced. Ohio State became kind of one-dimensional, even though they did run it a bunch too. They actually ended up getting, let's see here, 31 carry. I mean, they carried it a ton. They ran a ton of plays. Unfortunately, just kind of ran out. And as you said, Olave came and he ate. Garrett Wilson, he scored. They're 2 big dogs. And then this Smith Najiba, I think I just destroyed his name, but he came out and had a huge game. I think Ohio State's gonna be all right. Big Ten wise, this is weirdly enough, this is the Ohio State that I predicted 3 years ago. I thought that after losing Urban Meyer and Dwayne Haskins in one off season, that they would actually be not mediocre by any means, but as okay, we're gonna lose some games.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, Ryan Day came in, and then came Justin Fields. And Justin Fields was way better than I thought. And they never did a lot of losing. It makes me wonder, I'm not saying Michigan's beating them. I'm not sitting here making that prediction right now. We'll talk about that come November. But from what I've seen of Ohio State in these 2 games, Are they winning the Big Ten? Probably. Are they unbeatable? No, they're not. I thought this team was going to run the table. I think they might have another loss on their schedule. Where? I don't know. I'm not going to. We're getting that as it comes down to it. But I don't think the quarterback that is playing either. First off, he doesn't have the attention of the fans because there's, 5-star. Is it Quinn? Is that his name? Quinn Ewers.
Quinn Ewers. Yep.
Half the fan base has already turned to him, mentally, physically, whatever you want to call it. But it wouldn't shock me if he found his way on the field later in this year, especially if Ohio State loses again. I can't see Ryan Day taking multiple losses. I can't see that being okay for him.
Right. Now, honestly though, like, is that where Ohio State's program's at? I mean, obviously they're SEC North right now, but I mean, CJ Stroud's second game as a starter against number 12 Oregon, and I mean, it's not solely on him. Again, obviously the defense is the one giving it up, and he threw 54 times. A lot of it was in the second half to play catch up, or I mean, even the second quarter they were down. So I'm not. If I'm an Ohio State fan, I'm not completely like throwing in the towel on CJ Stroud. I know they're loaded from, ass to mouth, but I mean, I can just take it easy, I mean, and Ohio State fans, in 2011, even in 2012, they went undefeated in 2012, and people were pissed that their games were close, and some are realistic and they're not a-holes, but a lot of them, I mean, it's that adversity hits, and it's like you're just overreacting. I mean, you're not going to win by 45 points every game, and losses do come, and it sucks to say, like, we're used to it, but I mean, there's no need to panic. Again, this is not even Big Ten conference yet, and plenty of teams get into the college football playoff with one, maybe two losses, and the committee, or how the committee sees everything is like, that conference championship. I mean, I guess depending on the year, because there's been some controversy, but I'm like, if you win the conference championship and you're Ohio State, I mean, you're kind of grandfathered in that top four. So just hold your horses.
Something bad
got
happened.
two cupcakes coming up. I think you'll be okay.
Yeah, I think Ohio State has more than enough to make an additional run at getting into the Final Four. But Joe Klatt, this is out of his mouth. I respect the shit out of Joe Klatt. I think he's one of the best in the game right now. Especially just being unbiased, talking about and defending the Big Ten. I think that he does not let them just get pushed around as far as media goes. He said Ohio State's loss to Oregon at home was a bad loss. I don't know. If he says that, I typically try to understand why, because I don't think he's not one of those guys that comes out with hot takes and that's how he gets noticed. He gets noticed from hard work and respectable takes. So thought that was interesting. They said it's a bad loss.
I mean, from ranking comparison, maybe, but in my opinion, like, it's like, obviously a loss is never a good thing, but it's not. I mean, if Oregon goes on to win the Pac-12 and they make in conversation for postseason, accolades and talk, I mean, like, who knows? Might be looking at this right now where, Oregon and Ohio State somehow find their way into the top four. So it's like, I mean, yeah, I agree. Joel Klatt is one of the best in the game. I like him a lot because, it's a little satire, or a little tongue in cheek when he goes on Colin Cowherd and they kind of make fun of each other. But for the most part, it's just, this is smoke on my end. It's like, who cares?
Obviously they're beating Tulsa this week. Do you disagree?
As I said, the next two games you're taking dubs, so you'll pad the record. You'll be 3-1, and then you'll be looking for the next one.
Let's talk a little bit of college football in general. Top 25 here. I'm gonna go down the rankings here. We're not going to talk about every single team, but we're going to talk about some big movers and some people that have been mainstays. Alabama, Georgia, Oklahoma, all 2-0, sitting on top of the nation here. Georgia and Alabama get first place votes. What do you think about that ranking? Alabama, Georgia, Oklahoma. Is that just about right? Somebody need moved?
Yeah, it's solid until further notice to me.
Got a couple of new heads here in the game. Not that they're unfamiliar, but this is just we've had a lot of the same teams in the top 5 or 6 for so long that some of these teams it just seems weird. Oregon climbs up 8 spots after beating Ohio State to number 4. Iowa, after beating Iowa State, climbs up 5 spots, and then you have Clemson at 1-1. What do you think there?
Well, Oregon moved up 8 spots, which is obviously a huge launch. Part of that reason is Texas A&M having a close battle with Colorado. They fall back 2. Cincinnati wins, but they fall back 1. Ohio State falls back 6. So Oregon had a little give and take there, which is fine. I have no argument there. Now in the AP and the coaches poll, they don't agree with Iowa, and it's only 2 spots, but Iowa's 7 coaches, 5 AP. So I see that. I'm keeping an eye on the Hawkeyes, and UCLA right there is 2-0. They got 2 nice wins so far. They're creeping up the ladder, and then obviously with Iowa beating Iowa State, they fall back. So this weekend, I'll have to look at the slate on what it looks like. We have any top 10 or 5 games coming up, but more shakeup could happen.
What do you think about Notre Dame? They're 2-0 on the year, but
Notre Dame.
Very narrow win on the road at Florida State, and then a very narrow win at home against the University of Toledo. They dropped 4 spots. Too low, too high, right? They're at 12. Where do you like them at?
Well, I mean, can't disagree with it. You're at home against Toledo, and I don't whether Toledo and the MAC is considered poised for a solid year or not. Like, Michigan lost to Toledo before, so when you're in the top 10, man, and you look that bad and you squeak it out in the final moments, dropping 4 spots, it's going to happen.
Yeah. Couple other ones here before we jump off. So we have VTech beating North Carolina. They're in at 14. Iowa State drops 5 spots at they're at 14. Iowa State's at 14, dropping 5 spots. Virginia Tech's at 15. Arizona State moves to 2-0. They're up 14 spots at 19. North Carolina jumps back up after being ranked 10th, losing opening day, winning week 2. They jump up 3 spots. Miami dropping down a couple of spots. And then Michigan makes their debut. Any teams that you see moving up or down that I just named, or another one if you have them?
After week 3 here?
Yeah, just in general, I guess, over the course of the season, is there anybody that you're just like, that's a short-term thing?
Auburn travels to Penn State this weekend, correct?
Absolutely. That one is that's a whiteout. That's a big game.
Okay,
those are ranked, so it's 22.
I think if Auburn wins that game, I think Auburn jumps into close to the top 15. They might make a big jump. Obviously, they'll have to have help in front of them because a lot of the teams that are in front of Auburn right now all jumped. But that Penn State Auburn game is going to be huge.
Yeah, so Penn State beat Wisconsin. Wisconsin's at 18. If Auburn beats Penn State, no matter what, Penn State's got to be above Wisconsin, and Auburn's got to be above them. I think Auburn would shoot up into the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
It almost happens.
Right.
Especially
and if Penn State wins, yeah. Right. And if Penn State wins, I think they might even get pushed into 7. I don't know.
Yeah, UCLA's been doing their jumping too after decimating LSU, who's no longer in the top. So watch out for Miami also. So number 24 Miami this week is home against Michigan State, who's 2-0 and has looked fairly decent throughout their first 2 games. Watch out for that one as well. And then obviously we like Michigan to continue moving up, and they got 2 easier opponents on the horizon with Northern Illinois and then Rutgers. So nothing to really get us up into the top 15 or so, but they'll be able to probably get up a spot or 2. obviously, let's hope Wisconsin stays winning over the next 2 games so that we can have a top 25 matchup with them, who's currently at 18. Well, that's all I have for top 25. That's all I have for Michigan. That's all I have for Ohio State. Anything else you want to add?
No, other than I know today Urban Meyer flat out said no chance. But that USC job, they obviously fired Clay Helton. That spot's wide open. There's been
Yep.
talk for Eric Bieniemy from the Kansas City Chiefs offensive coordinator, but Urban Meyer, he's a bit of a spark plug. He kind of likes to jump around the league and stuff like that. So even though he says no, I think as the Jaguars, Jaguar, I keep an eye on. Even though he said no, I mean Nick Saban went out flat out in the media session, says I am not the head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide, and then boom, he jumps and leaves the next day. So you never know what happens.
Yeah, that whole thing is really weird. Personally, I kind of hope he goes, only because there are 2 teams that. I'm not going to group Michigan into this, but I do think they could be. There's probably 3 teams that college football just needs to be better: USC, Texas, and Miami, Florida.
Yep.
I think those teams need to just be better. Because I'm not even going to group Michigan in because they've actually been all right in the sense, in the grand scheme of things. Southern Cal, the Hurricanes, and Texas have not been what we know them to be. And those are
right.
national championship contenders. And Urban Meyer instantly does that for any of those 3 teams if he were to go there. Southern Cal for sure. So
right, and since the early to mid 2000s, I mean Michigan's been pretty much been better than USC maybe. I mean I know they had Darnold and Sanchez, but they've been better than Miami. And when it comes to Texas, outside of Colt McCoy, man, I mean if you're a Texas diehard fan, you have some arguments for Sam Ehlinger, but I mean it's been since Colt McCoy since 2009, right? So.
yeah,
Texas again. It's been a long time since they've been on top, and it definitely is weird not seeing those 3 to 4 programs be talked about. And so, I really hope that Miami turns it around. They're kind of in my closet team just for family's sake, but yeah.
yeah. Back on the USC before we log off, listening to Colin over the last day or two, he's said a couple things on this, and they make sense. And Joe Klatt today made a really nice couple points too. They need either one of a few things, and if they're able to get multiple traits out of this person, that'd be great. But they either need some NFL pedigree, they either need an excellent recruiter, or they just need a spark plug. Now, if that person could be one of 2 or 3 of those things, obviously that would be great. A name that was thrown out that I would that I think would be huge. Obviously, Eric Bieniemy would be huge anywhere he goes, and I think that has potential. I don't know how about the recruiting, but Joe Brady, he's with the Saints, makes himself a household name, coaching up Joe Burrow for Coach Orgeron over at LSU. They have not been the same since he left. Burrow left too, but since he left, he goes to the Panthers, and the Panthers have had quite a bit of an offense. I don't know. I think Joe Brady would be a nice piece for them. I've been talking about Joe Brady now for about 1.5 years, 2 years almost. So, there is talk so that James Franklin is interested in the spot. That I seen that today. We'll see where that goes. Get him out of the Big Ten. That'd be nuts.
Yeah, and then
That'd be nuts. Well, I think that pretty much wraps us up here on this Wednesday night. And I can't wait for Saturday. Watch Michigan continue to move through the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
All right, sir. I will see you next time, and go blue.
Go blue, buddy.